You're listening to episode 14 of the Fearless English podcast. Welcome to the Fearless English podcast, where it's all about helping you confidently communicate with anyone without compromising who you are. Let's get started, fearless learner. Hello, everyone. Today, I'm super excited about this episode. I have someone super cool talking to us about mindset and confidence when you're learning English. Today, I have Coach Roda, who is going to be talking to us about this topic. And hopefully by the end of this episode, you'll be able to walk away feeling like you can start doing a few things to help you get started when it comes to increasing your confidence when it comes to language learning. Hello, Roda. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, Halima. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's actually a pleasure to be on the podcast. I remember when you set up the podcast, I was like, oh my God, I would love to feature. So thank you so much for inviting me.
Of course. It's my pleasure. So we're going to go straight in. I want everybody to know who you are. Give us a little bit of a background story about who you are, what you do, and so on.
Okay, so my name's Roda, and just like Halima, I did actually go into the UK as I was around 8 years old when I actually moved into the UK, and I spoke no English at all. And I do remember, some stories from when I went into school, and I was so eager to learn because I didn't want to be this child who was clueless. And I think with me, I've always been this person who's very passionate about learning and trying my best. So I'll try so hard. I think within about 6 months, I was speaking fluently, and I got into writing. Eventually, I got into poetry. Basically, here I am now, age 31. I've done various different things. I've been a student always, to be honest. I'm always learning things. Training right now as part of my coaching program in a program called NLP, which actually focuses on linguistics, how to communicate effectively. And I am a business coach currently, and business mindset coach. And I specifically focus on working with new coaches in terms of their mindset and how they could actually up level so that they can put themselves out there in a very authentic way. I'm still quite new to the whole coaching world, but it's something that's helped me a lot in terms of my personal development. And I'm still learning, training, planning to do a master's in counseling, hopefully this September. So got a lot going on there. I do have a full-time job as well as a projects manager. I was actually homeschooling my 3 children as well. So it's trying to do various different things. And I think, to be honest, it's been the best year of my life, just literally doing things for myself and not thinking about others, not doing things to please others, just for my own well-being. And it's been really good, to be honest. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much for updating us with what's going on. I love...
I don't know. I've got a lot to say, but that's my that's me trying to summarize. I struggle with summarizing what I do and all of that. So
no, I love it so much. I love the fact that you've gone through this confidence journey. So I can't wait to hear about all the nuances and details of what helped you move on from being scared to I'm going to give this a try, and then knowing these are the milestones that I'm reaching for. And all these milestones are things that you're absolutely terrified about, but you have them in the plan and you want to actually pursue these things, which is amazing.
I did mention another business I actually have. I'm co-founder of a modest fashion wear line as well. So
amazing.
I have various different projects happening at the same time. But to be honest, I think it's been a really good journey. For me, it's been the best time ever, just because I'm doing things for myself. I'm doing it for me. And that's been helping me. I get a lot of people who come to me and be like, how could you do this? And how could you do that? How are you juggling all of this? And I'm I feel comfortable enough to be able to do it. I have no issues. And I think it's the whole mindset thing. When you think in your head, oh no, I won't be able to do this, I won't be able to do that. We think about it all the same 24 hours
Yeah.
It's just the way you kind of like utilize that time. And I do anyway, like in the beginning when I kind of like started the whole business and like the whole like self-development journey, I invested in coaches. I remember working 24/7, and that wasn't good for me because I was falling back into that place where I felt quite low, quite miserable. I felt like giving up. And I reached this level right now where I just try my best. I've reduced like my work timing so that everything's kind of like aligned with my values and how I kind of like feel. And it's been helping me a lot because as someone with like, I've got high function anxiety, and as someone with high function anxiety, the likelihood of me falling back into like those low states it's quite high. So I limit the workload that I'm doing. I try my best to kind of like keep up with like my goals, but I don't worry too much about making things perfect, about having things perfect, about the things I used to do before, like procrastinating, perfection. And with me, perfection is like a big thing. And because of like me constantly striving for perfection, I was unable to do a lot of things. And I was unable to do a lot of things. And now it's like so much easier for me to actually just try different things and just go for it and try my best, really.
Yeah, it's so inspiring just listening to you. I'm like, oh, I can just listen to her all day.
Thank you.
Because this is something that I struggled with as well, with the whole, what do I do with my business? What do I do with other things? And so on. And this just kind of like, it's a lot. I mean, you have to be good at time management for you to be able to juggle all these things. Procrastination and watching Netflix for 3 hours just doesn't cut it anymore. You just don't have time for that. But it's also important to make sure that you're focusing on, how do I take care of myself so I'm not burning out?
True.
And that's like, I've never heard of the term high functioning, but I feel like from what you're saying, I have that disease. I know it's not a disease.
It's not.
Yeah.
But it's something very common, to be honest, especially like with those like with entrepreneurs and like businesswomen, like people try like we're trying so many different things, and we don't realize until sometimes like you fall into this really low state, and it's like, oh God, like how do I get out of this? And I think with all of this, I think for me the biggest struggle wasn't ever like just about perfection. It was like always trying to please others, like do things for the sake of others, and like trying to put myself out there so people were like, oh wow, like this girl's doing this and this. But I reached a stage where I do things for myself. Like I try to cut out any triggers. Like there's people who wouldn't really support you in that sense, and that kind of like does affect your confidence level as well. And I've been doing various different things to ensure that I am like okay mentally.
Yeah.
Because I know like with regards to like mental health, physical health is very much kind of like involved.
Yeah.
And I'm someone I've endured like burnout a lot. I've been in hospital for burnout. When I was in my first ever degree that I was doing a degree in radiotherapy and oncology. I had like, so basically I used to go to placement in Reading, and I was living in London. It was a 2-hour journey to go, 2-hour journey to come back. At the end of that placement, I became really sick. I literally had sepsis, and the doctors didn't know what was causing, like they didn't even tell what was wrong. It was just like I was on antibiotics, I was on IV fluids. But thinking back, years later, I realized it was nothing else but burnout. And the thing is, it happened again like a few times, and that's the thing. So right now, like I literally try to reduce kind of like my workload, any programs that I'm doing, any courses that I'm doing, because I have this habit of like joining like various different courses. I get really excited when someone like doing a course. I'm like, I want to like I've always been this person who wants to learn and like just work on my personal development. And for me, it's not just for me, like I want my kids to see this person like who's got everything put together, who's confident, who's able to kind of like help them in a manner where they have that confidence as well as children, so that they can progress.
Sorry to stop you. You're speaking at like 3,000 miles per hour.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, it's okay. It's fine. Like, but it's just my students. They're English as a second language learners, so they're gonna be like,
oh, I'm so sorry about that. I'll slow down. I have this really bad habit. When I get into something, I talk really fast, and like I'll slow down.
Sorry.
Let's slow down from now. Okay.
Yeah, they're gonna just be like, oh my God.
Yeah. Oh God, they need to rewind.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, I'll slow down completely from here.
So I want to go into confidence. Okay, so some of my students, actually a lot of my students will come up to me and say, hey, I know how to speak English. I've been learning English for such a long time, but when I go to the doctors, I can't speak to the doctor and tell him or her that there's something wrong with my child. I just feel like I physically can't communicate with people because I'm afraid of making mistakes. I'm afraid of looking silly in front of someone or saying something wrong. So I want to talk about that. When someone feels that way and they feel almost crippled by their fear, by making mistakes and so on, what could they do? First of all, like, what are the first few steps that you would recommend that person to start doing?
First of all, what is it that's kind of like, why are you scared? What's going to happen if you speak up? Like, what is it that you're scared of? Like, you're scared of like this person judging you, but why? Like, how is this going to affect you? Like, what's this doctor going to do to you? Like, what's going to happen if you actually do? There's little things. And I think another thing would definitely be not to overthink.
Can we go back to the first one? I really love the first one you've said before we move on to the second one. So being aware of the consequences, like sometimes we kind of make up this dinosaur coming to eat us up if we make a mistake, but what is actually going to happen? And that's like something that I recently went through, where sometimes when I'm creating stories on Instagram, I will make typos or mistakes that like I don't notice, or I'm in a rush or whatever. But people will send me messages saying, "Oh, you made that mistake," and it's just like I throw in the towel and I'm like, "Okay, I'm done with life," you know.
Yeah.
But then when I ask myself that same question, what's gonna happen when I do make a mistake? And then so it's like someone's gonna say something, and then kind of keep asking that question. And then what I realized, what happens after the person said something about the mistake I made? I start to beat myself up.
That's true. That's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
Because that person must have forgotten about it. But you, because you keep repeating in your head, oh my God, I made a mistake. Oh my God, what's going to happen? Oh my God, like this person might judge me. Oh my God, they might treat me like, in your head, you feel like you're going to be mistreated, like something's going to happen. But most times than not, none of that will happen. You'll actually say what you want to say. They'll try to understand what you're kind of like trying to explain. And I'm very sure they won't laugh at you. No doctor would laugh at you because you don't know how to communicate. Like you don't actually know how to express yourself. And it's normal. Like imagine someone who actually speaks the language, but they struggle to communicate. Like there's people who speak, like with me as someone like who's always been really quiet, suffered with like serious anxiety. I've always been really, really uncomfortable in any situation, like with a third. Unless I know you personally, I struggle to communicate. So I've been through experiences where, like, I want to explain myself to someone, but I struggle, and I'll say it really quietly, and they'll be like, sorry, repeat yourself. And I'm like, and then I'll feel even more uncomfortable because this is exactly what's happening. Because I feel like if I say it quietly, I feel comfortable. I feel like, oh, I'm in my small box where I feel safe. Whereas if I actually express myself, I'm scared that this person will judge me. And I think it's the same, someone who doesn't really speak English and they go into the hospital and they need to speak to a doctor, literally going for it. I think that's the best thing. Just going for it, because I think we just learn from my mistakes, because I've learned a lot from my mistakes.
Yeah.
When before, well, as a perfectionist, always trying to make everything perfect, trying to make sure everything's polished, I struggle a lot with like when someone says something, like so when someone disagrees with me, or when someone kind of like makes some sort of comment about what I'm saying. For me, like it's like I just struggle so much, and I feel like giving up. And it happened a lot recently with regards to like when I post things on Facebook, mainly, not Instagram. I'll post things based on my own thoughts and ideas and feelings, and I'm decided like I don't want to filter anything that I post. And I do get comments from certain people who disagree, and I reached a stage where I feel comfortable enough not to explain myself, because those are my opinions and thoughts.
How did you get there though? How did you get to that point where you now feel like it's okay to express myself, and if someone has a disagreement, so be it?
I think because I was always low constantly. Like, I don't want to be in that low state all the time because I'm overthinking. I feel like mentally, like I was really getting exhausted. Like I'm always 24/7, like thinking about everything, thinking about a poster. Like I've even got an Instagram post that I want to release very soon about my journey with regards to like writing captions. I suffered like from serious like writing blocks, like writing block. I struggled a lot to kind of like write. The reasons why were mainly due to, for example, like that fear of judgment, that fear that it's not perfect, that fear that it's got like errors, like grammatical errors. And then I was like, do you know what? When you think about it, why should that hinder you? Like, why should that stop you from actually just going out there? And since like stopping that, it's so easy for me to actually just write, and it flows so easily without me having to think, oh, I need this to be perfect, or I need to come across as someone like who's an expert, or like so many things come up in my head. And right now, literally, like, because I've been doing a lot of journaling lately, where I feel like some sort of negativity around me when I sense some sort of like danger in my head, I'll sit down and write about it.
Yeah.
Why am I feeling like this? And I think that is something that will be very helpful for your students, like for them to sit down and think about the reasons why they've got those fears, the reasons why they don't feel comfortable or they don't feel confident enough to kind of like express themselves.
So how does that help them? By like being able to see the problems and reflect and write it down and see it on a piece of paper or iPad or whatever you're using. Why does that help? How does that help someone, I guess, like recover from this?
I think that helps in terms of releasing all of that you've got within yourself. So instead of you overthinking and keeping it in your mind, like you've got everything around your head, when you actually write it down, you're literally releasing. Like it's like release work, that's what they call it. So and it really has been really helpful for me, because I never used to believe in it before, but now doing it, it's been really, really helpful. Whenever I get triggered when something makes me really like upset, I'll just sit down and write. Like I'll just write, and I'll write whatever comes into my head, kind of thing. And it helps me a lot. When you read back, you're like, wow, I can't even believe it. Like some of the things that kind of like comes up is like nothing. Like it's something very small, but in your head, you kind of like tend to overthink, over worry. And I think that definitely makes things worse for you. And I know, like, for example, like if you're overthinking constantly, it affects you in terms of like your memory. It affects you in terms of like your confidence. It affects you in terms of like how you can like go about life. It's not just your education and your personal life itself. Like you see yourself completely down. I've been in that state a lot, and I remember like when I kind of like got married, I struggled to kind of like cope with, I think, the dynamics between me and my husband, because, and a lot of it was to do with myself. It's because I didn't work on myself. Like I would struggle so much. I'll like just place the blame on him, and I would overthink about maybe he'll say something, and I'll twist it in my head.
Yeah.
I'll take that word and kind of like analyze it completely wrong in my head and make things worse. And I think it's the same in every situation.
Yeah, you're right. So like that's just going back to the first point that you made, which is we're really just scared of ourselves. We're scared of like the beating up, the like unkind comments that we make about the situation. So like if someone pointed out a mistake, what does that mean? What are you making it mean about you as a person? So you're not a good teacher. The whole
you're not worthy enough
for that. Yeah, are you worthy enough? Should you even be teaching anyone? Are you even any help to it? So lots of things that you would never ever say to your friend or your family member, but yet you're okay saying it to yourself. And I love that. I think that's probably what kills confidence, the internal like unkind comments that we give ourselves, like that we're not good enough, that we're always making mistakes, always. And then at the end, no wonder you don't feel confident enough to speak to someone, because you don't have your own back. You know, when you do make that mistake, right? What happens after you make that mistake? Are you kind to yourself? Do you have your own back? Or are you beating yourself up for days where you just feel depleted? I think that's such a good point that you made, which is first understand what happens after the situation. So when you make a mistake, write down what exactly is the thing that will happen, be aware. And then the second thing,
or how you're feeling as well, like literally write down how you're feeling, what's gonna happen, like what is happening, like is there a problem, is this doctor gonna, like going back to that example, is this doctor gonna laugh at you, is he gonna treat you, is he going to mistreat you, is he going to judge you, like maybe the next time you come to the hospital or the medical setting. And most times than not, when you ask yourself these questions, you realize that a lot of the answers that come up,
basically predict, and just kind of not predict, but like think about the worst case scenario, what's going to happen. And then you do put yourself in those situations and something happens, like you make a mistake, write down everything that you're feeling and what it's making you feel, so that you're aware of, it's kind of almost like matching what you thought before with what you're actually feeling in the moment, and then bringing that, taking care of yourself in that moment as part of the steps that you're taking. So what would be the next thing that you do? Like, is there anything else that you would recommend in terms of, let's take, for example, the person wants to do something that scares them. I mean, nobody really wants to do things that scare them. Why would you recommend someone to go ahead? And I love going back to the beginning where you were like, these are the things I'm planning to do. And I know they scare the hell out of you. Like, you want to go Instagram Live as your next step.
Yeah.
Why is it that first of all, you've been through lots of scary things in the past year, but now you're making plans to do more scary things? I'd love to know why.
To be honest, like, I want to be able to connect with more people. I want more people to kind of like be aware of like what I've got to offer. Like, I want to share my own experiences, because I know, I'm sure there's loads of people out there who kind of like, who have been going through the same thing that I have. And I'm sure like literally me talking about my own experiences and sharing my own learning would actually benefit a lot. In terms of like how I've been doing this and how I feel like someone who's interested in like kind of like pushing themselves out there, it's definitely taking it slow. I've not been forcing myself, I've not been like, oh no, I need to go on a live like right now. I've not been doing that because I need to be comfortable enough to do that. So what I did was slowly kind of like with me, with regards to like writing the captions, I struggled because I used to think, oh my God, this is terrible writing. This is like mediocre, this is not good enough. And I would struggle for so long, and I'll try to create a post and it'll take me like weeks before I post it. And then eventually I just like, you know what, I think I can, like, I've always been very good, like I've been into like writing, copywriting, and but I didn't realize that it's something I actually enjoy. So with regards to kind of like showing up online and me actually being comfortable enough to do so, I took the steps where I kind of like started off like writing my captions, put myself out there, talking about my story without me having to kind of like voice myself. Like, there's no, I didn't do any audio, I didn't do any videos, I didn't do any of that, any photos, in fact. But what I did was, after that, kind of like progressed to podcast, and I was happy enough to have featured like 3 podcasts, and this is my 4th. And with the first one, I remember I was panicking and I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. All these thoughts kept coming into my head. I spoke to she's a coach friend of mine. I spoke to her and I told her, what's going to happen? Can you send me like some sort of plan so that I can like plan ahead? So she did send me some questions, and I remember writing down like all the answers. But when it came to actually doing the podcast, I couldn't even follow the answers because it came naturally. Because, you know, like when you have this thing where when I stopped kind of like thinking about all those things that will happen, when I stopped thinking about every negative thing that I was thinking about before the podcast, it was so easy. Like, I was able to do it, and I was like, wow, if I can do this, I can do another one. And then I remember with the next one, this other lady I met at event told me about a podcast and everything, and I was like, oh, I'll be interested to kind of like I'm interested in kind of like featuring. And she actually said yeah, and we kind of like got on with it, and it's really, really good. And then the 3rd podcast was actually a very interesting one, because I'm the one who messaged this lady, and I was like, I would love to feature in your podcast. Like, and I was really scared because this lady has, she's featured really like, people are quite popular, like I don't know, they're popular in terms of like people who are kind of like well known like on Instagram and social media. And here I am, like here I am, rather like coming out from like nowhere. and I messaged, I told her I really want to feature in your podcast. I love what you've got to offer, and I just want to kind of like be on there and share my own kind of like thoughts and experiences. And I remember she didn't reply back straight away, but after like a few days, she did respond and she said, "Yes, let's do it." And before we did the whole podcast, we did a small kind of like Zoom meeting just to assess like if I'm suitable kind of like to be on the podcast. And she was like really happy. And we did the podcast like a week later, and it went really, really well. And that was like my biggest, I think that was the best podcast I've done, because it kind of like, I was out of my comfort zone. I approached this lady and told her that I'm interested in featuring. Despite knowing that there's so many other people on there, people who have been doing this for years, and me kind of like not having much experience in terms of like the online space. But it went really well. It was really good. And the lady now, like, she's a really good friend of mine. Like, she's amazing, like very inspiring. So there's all positives that came out of those podcast features, the negatives. After the podcast, what I did was I got a Facebook group. My coach kind of like handed me that Facebook group to kind of like manage, and I was really scared to kind of like do much on there. But what I did was, I've had a few people interested in like doing interviews on Facebook Live, and I did one, and then I did a second, and it went really, really well. And people messaging me saying, "Wow, like I loved that feature, like that live that you did," and that kind of like gave me even more confidence. Like, it kind of like stopped me from overthinking, stopped me from thinking, "Oh, who are you to kind of like put yourself out there? Do you actually have enough kind of like knowledge to kind of like share?" Honestly, it's been a very good experience. I do sometimes get triggered. Like, there's times when I go for like weeks where I'm not really showing up online, when I'm not really posting much, when I'm not really talking. And that does take you back to that space where you feel like, "Oh, I don't feel comfortable enough."
I feel like you're describing my life, because it is. If you stop doing these things that are like, if you stop taking the steps that put you a little bit outside your comfort zone, you do go back to that space where you feel scared again to do it. I love that so much. I think you do need to go back to that point where you keep going, so you're not going back to the point where you go to, "I don't want to do anything anymore." So I want to like summarize what we spoke about today, because I think you've given some really, really amazing tips.
Thank you so much. I've got a lot more to give, but I guess we don't have enough time. So
no, yeah. I think the steps that we've given today is more than enough for people to start stuff happen, so that like they can start doing these things, so that they can actually see a difference in their English, in their confidence, and so on. So I just want to quickly summarize. Step one is to write down what you think is going to happen. So what is it that you're scared of? What is the worst case scenario? Step two is to, when something does happen, when you do make a mistake or someone says something about your mistakes, then writing down what you're feeling, being aware of your emotions, understanding what the emotions are. And then the third step, which I love, is simplifying everything step by step. What's the simplest, smallest thing that will push you one step closer to being a more confident person? Did I get the 3 steps right?
Yep, I think that's about it. So literally analyzing the situation, kind of like figuring out the reasons why you've got those feelings, why you've got that fear, and literally definitely kind of like taking it slow. Don't like push yourself out there if you're not comfortable enough. I think take it slow. Take various steps so that you're actually confident enough to kind of like progress out there by yourself. Where I know like sometimes you get like, I think we kind of like see what others are doing. So maybe you've got someone in a similar situation, but they're a bit more comfortable, so they're able to kind of like express themselves. So you might be comparing yourself to that person. Maybe stop comparing yourself to others as well, and just and you'll be very like, I think not only will the confidence help you in terms of like communicating, I think it will help you in terms of like your personal development, your growth, family life, everything, to be honest, like all kinds of like spheres um, in your life. Or
Thank you so much, Roda. This has been an amazing podcast. I've loved listening to you, so I know everybody
thank you.
listening is going to really love these tips that you've given them. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your time with us. I know you're in a situation where it's
Yeah,
difficult.
it was I couldn't avoid it today, so
Yeah, no.
sorry about that. And I hope we don't have any background noise on the podcast, hopefully. So yeah, and I'd love to feature again, and it would be really nice to kind of like do something where I'd love to meet some of the students, because I think it'll be really good to kind of like
Yeah, I'm sure they'd love to meet you, Rhoda. So I'm gonna ask you just a few questions. In regards to you, are you learning any new languages at the moment?
Actually, yes, I am. So I'm in Egypt currently, where my family lives, and I do know basic Arabic, but it's been a long time since I practiced. But I've been trying to kind of like overcome it, and I do get this thing where I don't feel comfortable enough to express myself, whereas I know how to kind of like say certain things. So I think my next step is definitely to kind of like go out there and just like get on with it and just express myself without feeling like, oh no, like I'm not saying it correctly, or I'm scared or reliant on like my mom and my siblings of like, you guys say it, you speak for me, or going with the whole thing, oh, I don't speak Arabic, I speak English only. I think, yeah, maybe this is also kind of like beneficial for me currently, like right now, like literally like just going for it. And and I know it's practice that makes perfect. Like now being in the country and like hearing so many people like communicating, I've been picking up much more than I ever have. I think learning on your own, like when you're just sitting down and learning by yourself. So going out there definitely helps a lot, and just pushing yourself.
Communicate, yeah, definitely. I love how you switched your mindset. You're like, yes, I am scared of like communicating.
I am. It's crazy. Because I've been doing that a lot, and then, like I think it's this thing. Like we're all human. We all go through the same thing. You can like like you can work on your personal development, you can work on your mindset and everything, but we're human at the end of the day. We'll always go back into the state. It's just the way you kind of like overcome those fears, how you can like switch your mindset, that kind of like helps you in any situation you're in.
Amazing.
And I know I can do it. That's the thing. So with me, like right now, I'm like, I can do this. So I'm like, yes, I can do this. I'm going to do it. Yeah.
Great. And the next question is, what's your favorite English word?
I like very kind of like old English. I like stuff like fathom and stuff like I can't fathom that, or like I like those kind of like really formal words. And I do use it a lot, and sometimes I'm like, oh shit, like I probably need to kind of like rephrase some of the, like when I'm writing captions, something like super formal, and I'm like, oh, maybe it's a bit too formal. I might need to like rephrase it so it's more it's easier to kind of like digest, more people can like kind of like relate to it. So yeah, I don't have a particular word, but I do love like really old kind of like words.
Amazing. And the last thing is, what do you think it takes to be a fearless English learner?
I think definitely working on your mindset, switching that mindset. You thinking that you can't do it, you're not worth it, you're not capable, to I can do it, I'm capable, I'm worth it. Like I have that confidence. I'm gonna do, like I think thinking more positively, like being very positive with yourself as well, like be nice to yourself, definitely, like just be kind to yourself, just pushing through regardless if you're going through like a bad time, or if you're struggling to kind of like keep up like with your learning, or you're going through something maybe like behind the scenes, just don't give up.
Love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rhoda. And thank you guys
Hannah.
for listening to this conversation. And send me a message or send Rhoda a message. I'll have all of her information in the show notes. Send her a message and tell her which tip you like the most and which one you're going to start utilizing and using in your own life. So I will see you guys next week. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. If you enjoyed today's lesson, then you'll love our speaking club, where we take what we learn in these lessons and put it into action. You'll get to meet other women and practice speaking English every week for an hour. all you have to do is go to www.blackboardenglish.com/cup. I'll say that again, www.blackboardenglish.com/cup. Let's work together to help you become a confident English speaker. See you in class.